Okay. Okay.
Okay. Um, okay, I want to jump into a question. So, okay. Okay, so I have a question for you. Um, what do you do to pull you back from, I don't know, the darkness when you're feeling like very, very exhausted by the world?
My psychologist.
Oh, yeah. Therapy. Of course. Love my
um,
therapist. Hi, Harsha. Yeah, amen.
Hi, Octavia.
Amen.
No, I think it's therapy, but also there are times where it's not easy to access my therapist because it's like in
Okay.
every, it's not like she's at my beck and call, you know?
Yeah.
Mm, but on the days where I'm unable to access her, who's not like the only access point, I have my family, I have,
Mm,
and when I say family, I'm not talking about my entire family. I'm talking about selective human beings in my family that I can be able to call. And then if they don't answer, then I have friends, close
mm,
friends who are ready to take my call. Even if they're not, they're going to call me back. Who are happy to hold the space for me.
yeah.
Uh, and that for me is a beautiful thing. It's like having a support is the only way. Like just having people to hold the space. Because sometimes you don't need people to say anything. You just
Mm,
need somebody to hear you just vent,
mm,
and then it's over. It's like, and then because it's the thought of somebody hearing you and saying, it's okay, I
yeah.
understand, you are not insane.
Being able to get it
Sometimes,
out.
yeah, sometimes you just need that. And sometimes, of course, sometimes you need um, more reassurance. And I have like a very overthinking brain. So I can easily go from 1 to 100.
Mm,
So just to get some, like, yeah, so for me I think it's my support, which is the humans that I talk about.
mm,
But also this week I've been, don't laugh, but there was the other day I was in the shower. It was a long day, and I was like, I'm so tired. I think it was last night, mentally and physically. And then this tune came into my head. Bitch, you're doing a good job. Bitch, you're doing a good job. And I was like, yes, I'm doing a good job. Yes, I'm doing a good
yeah.
job. So sometimes just
I
to
love
hype
that.
yourself out. So yeah, I try to hype myself, especially when you like, sometimes you feel like the people around you, although they care for you, you feel like they're also overwhelmed. So it's like how to, yeah, I don't know. There's never like a right
Yeah.
to, or right way
No,
to measure in a way.
that's good. And especially I like your last point of just everyone is overwhelmed. Um,
Mm,
yeah, and just that being able to hold space for each other.
mm,
And really that speaks to community because I that's one thing that I also really, really agree with. And one thing that I also have to struggle with because I don't like to be a burden.
mm,
But the sense of community just reminds me that this life thing is absolutely a team sport.
mm-hmm.
We are responsible for ourselves as people, but to get through it in the best way is it's not something you can do alone. So those are things that I genuinely agree with, and I'm glad that you have that. Because especially being away from home, the lone black woman in Norway, and just literally forging your place in the world. It's also a very isolating experience
Mm,
to be the
mm. And we don't talk
firstness.
about it. We don't have a conversation enough about it. And
Because
especially being
there's also that
the first to
exhaustion.
stay abroad, like the first to study abroad in your family, the first to,
Exactly.
to stay abroad in your family, like
Exactly.
the high expectations that your family
Ex-
members have for you. Everybody thinking you're fucking rich. Uh,
Literally, when you're just
But don't get me wrong, I'm good, but I'm not.
Like, let's speak it. I'm not broke. I'm not gonna speak brokenness on myself. But
Uh,
it is that thing of like, oh, I'm living in the West. I have money. I'm like, no, I'm living in the West. I have to pay Western prices
exactly. I
and
have to pay
rent.
Western bills.
I have to pay
You know what I'm
Western bills,
You have to
girl.
pay Western bills because there's other added VAT and taxes within Western bills that we don't have in South Africa. Like,
Literally, literally,
so
and
Western bills are not a joke.
nope.
And people think that we're just like, I sometimes think like people might think like I have a bathtub of money that
Oh
I just
God, I
go in and like,
wish.
and I'm like, I wish. Like, I'm
I
still waiting for the universe
wish.
to give me a sugar daddy, you
Yeah,
know.
oh, I need me a sugar daddy.
Come pay my bills, pay
Oh,
my
hallelujah.
bills.
Pay my bills. Amen. Amen. And I think that's also just part of that exhaustion because it's
Mm,
like, and it's a and that's what I really, that's another thing that exhausts me. People sort of being unable to see that so many things can be true at the same time. So it can be exciting and like a really great opportunity to be out in the West and forging our own way and
mm,
breaking down all these barriers and doors. But on the other side of that is the complete exhaustion of one having to break down barriers as like being a black woman. Like, what are you doing here? And just living, trying to survive, paying rent, like just the exhaustion of having to survive somewhere. That is very, very much not catering to you, not built for you, not thinking about you,
no.
unless you are, I don't know, paying your weight in gold, in a
Mm.
sense.
And
Um,
in Norway, it's also not easy for Black people to get a place, actually. It's that same property situation where there's a
yeah,
certain area they're going to dump you, and you're not going to find a place in a communal, like a commune, like shared living, or even just the paperwork of having to do it yourself. You have to go through a friend, and like if you're like, so there's so many layers of being Black in Western society that we're not having a conversation about. And
no,
for me, it's like there are days where I'm like, maybe it's time I pack up and I go home. And it's not a money issue that I'm packing up, right? Because my family members will be like, where are you going? There's no work here. And
mm,
I'm like, my
mm,
I'm tired of my mental health. I have developed mental health issues in living the West.
yeah.
And a friend of mine, when I was home now, during Christmas, January, we all went out for a drink. And she said to me, Dudes, what's going on? Like, you're so like this. What happened to you and your big personality? And I was like, no way happened, babe. No way happened. So, in that sense, it's also like, I feel like we're told that the West has more opportunities. And in a way, it does. But those opportunities come at your soul.
There is a very high cost.
And that's
There's
not
a
what we're
very
talking
high
about,
cost.
right? That your soul is at it. And so to see when you're also still keeping afloat on your everyday in a Western society, the kind of racism is so different.
Yeah,
It's diplomatic racism, it's subtle racism, it's
it's very
overt. Like,
kind.
it's a
It,
roller coaster of emotions. It's micro drops. It's like a bad drug addiction. It can turn people into druggies, into alcoholics, into criminals. And then they're like, you see, we told you, these people are fucked in the head.
but you see, that's also, and I feel like we're going to get into that in another episode, but it also just speaks to the added mental health toil of being black or brown in the
Mm,
world.
mm.
And that's it's an entire system, and I won't go into it now because it's a lot. It's a lot to
And
like
this
unravel.
this is the exhaustion. So I think what
Yeah.
I've been thinking about is like, being okay in being in exhaustion,
Mm.
because for some
Mm.
reason we're not supposed to be exhausted for too long.
Huh.
You know?
I don't
you're,
remember the last time I wasn't exhausted. Like,
you're supposed to get up and go and keep working. Sorry, my coffee's not working.
no, don't worry. It's the exhaustion.
It's the
It's the
exhaustion.
exhaustion.
This morning my body refused.
Yeah.
My body's like, we're not getting up. What are we gonna go do?
Where are we
We're gonna
going?
go
We don't
fight.
want to. We don't want. Oh, sorry. Labels. Yeah.
And somebody said to like, I was talking about like Russia potentially invading Norway,
Mm.
and they said, "Oh no, it's not possible." I'm like, when that button gets pressed, guys, there's no time for
I'm
neutral.
sorry. The
There's no time.
invasion of Ukraine. The invasion of Ukraine was impossible. Nothing is impossible, guys. Nothing is impossible. That is the amazing and terrifying reality of the world. Y'all think we won't go into nuclear holocaust tomorrow? This woman doesn't care about you, guys. Please. White people, I don't know how to say this without offending you, so that you actually listen to what I'm saying. Uh, you really need to let whiteness go because it is clouding your judgment, and literally everyone's going to die because of it. And I was exaggerating. I wish I was exaggerating, but holding on to whiteness, which is holding on to racial capitalism, which is holding on to misogyny and all the bigotries attached to whiteness that prop it up and allow it to, self-sustain for hundreds of thousands of years. All of those things are destroying us as people and destroying our planet,
Mm.
and we're tired of
And there's
literally
also the
watching
climate report as well. Oh,
you see,
all
because
in
let's
one
add to the
week. All in
it's
one week,
like,
we've had war, racism, and climate,
and the thing is, the climate thing is something in our generation that is absolutely going to get so much worse.
and
Like,
corona.
we're I'm t- guys, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I where
and
am I supposed to
and
get this energy?
and people dying around us, whether it's self-taken lives or not,
The trauma, the
mourning.
triggers.
It's we're still
No,
trying to
we'll
even work on our generational inherited traumas.
because
Uh,
as South Africans, we're already a country that is so openly traumatized. Like,
listen,
we're just so openly traumatized, and we haven't been given, haven't had the resources to deal with it. We haven't had a national reckoning in terms of dealing with our trauma, because TRC. Sorry,
no,
the
that
whole
Rainbow
TRC.
Nation bullshit is something we're still needed to get into because it's the Rainbow Nation that destroyed our mental health.
Thank you, because we kind of just glossed over all the trauma
And
people.
anger. And
Thank
anger.
you.
Guys,
And the
like
thing
you
about
can't treat
anger,
people like that and kill people and then not have them be angry and full of rage and emotion and
and
trauma and
anytime,
then just
and
like
it,
smile and wave. The Jews got land. What the fuck did we get?
listen, we didn't get anything. We got like
The
we
Jews got
didn't
other
get
people's land.
anything.
What
We
the fuck
didn't.
did we get?
Ooh, ooh, free Palestine. We didn't get anything. We didn't get anything because it was the Rainbow Nation Project and reconciliation and rah rah. Everybody's happy now. TRC people, literally murderers, got to come and say, "Yeah, I murdered that person" for amnesty, and they got to go off and live their lives. While like the black population of South Africa has had almost everything stripped from us. So
Mm, 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 mm.
exhausted, exhausted because, like, when does it stop? With At what point do black people get to be angry about what
We
they've
don't
experienced?
because this is another episode as well when we talk about the stereotypes of the angry black.
Yeah,
Because in that angry black, it is
yeah,
also a way for by calling us angry black, it's a way for us for them to remove our anger.
exactly.
Because
Because
if they
if
call us
you
an angry
get,
black, then you are going to not try to be angry, because society has been like, new age society has been built on happy go lucky, that
You know,
whole
be
gratitude and blah blah. So what they do is they remove our anger and our ability to even express anger. And to us it's specific, because it's not just, I'm angry that the fridge didn't come because I bought the fridge. I'm angry because it's generational. So in order to put
thank
a lid on
you.
our generational anger, they use the terminology angry black as a way of making sure that we do not express our anger.
Exactly. It's to delegitimize the very valid reasons why we're angry. We're angry because, yeah, we were given a vote, but we weren't given our country back. We're
No,
angry
no.
as Black women that we're the ones who have to bear the brunt of
Of
a
everything.
nation of men who are angry
Mm.
and traumatized and violent because they're traumatized and they don't know where to like get all that ire and the boiling anger. They don't know where to take it out on, so they take it out on
On
the
us.
weakest, on us, because compared to them socioeconomically we have less power than them. And
That
that's the
is,
thing about that's
that
the thing
falls
about
under the
creating
bracket of
hierarchies.
patriarchy, right? And the hierarchy
Yeah,
that is. And if we
yeah,
break it down, we're looking at Black men's inferiority complex, which is all men. All men have an inferiority complex. It's not specifically
yes,
Black men. But
yes.
each race of man, and culturally, has a different form of an inferiority complex when it is put into which kind of like cultural dynamics, country, race, right? So each inferiority complex formulates itself differently. When it comes to Black men, and especially South African Black men, it is an inferiority complex that is stemming from being able to, patriarchy saying to them, you are within a hierarchy of being above women, which at the same time is clashing with our lineage of matriarchy, right? And so, not understanding of like, how is it that patriarchy tells me that I am above you, but the matriarchy says I'm not, right? And then you add another level, that
And
apartheid.
even then, I'm gonna take patriarchy side because, oops, sorry, what are you saying?
No, it's fine. You have apartheid, which has abused Black men, right? Mentally, physically. And so under patriarchy, patriarchy says you need to protect your women. You are the head of the family. That's what patriarchy says. For us, they're not the heads. We are in a collaboration. You are the hunters and the gatherers, and you protect physically. We are the wiser, the ones who hold the communities, who build the societies, who are the advisors, right?
Because culture is carried by the woman.
Exactly. Culture is carried by the women. That's why it's a matriarchy. So, and then you have this collision between what patriarchy is saying and what cultural matriarchy is saying. And then you add that of generational violence and trauma of apartheid that made them feel that in both sphere of matriarchy and patriarchy, invalid. Because even within matriarchy, they can protect us. Even within patriarchy, they can protect us or get any form of power. So, and then you meet this confused human who needs to somehow fulfill what nature or what society has said their fulfillment is, but doesn't know how, because there are no systems that can fully accommodate how they're supposed to operate. And then what happens is we get the blunt of everything, because also patriarchy says we're beneath them.
I think with that, I genuinely believe that there was a culture of protection under matriarchy
Yes.
of women, of everyone, because the thing about the protection under patriarchy is it's linked to ownership.
Hmm.
So you're only protecting the woman because they're weaker and
Hmm.
they belong to
Exactly.
you.
Exactly.
And that's why you must protect your mother and your sisters and your aunts and your sisters, whatever. Like, that's why every time a woman faces any type of violence, in order to get men to understand and empathize and have compassion, we have to speak to the woman in their lives. We literally have to bring someone that they have an actual blood link to, in
Mm-hmm.
order to, in order for them to understand that women deserve safety and deserve rights and deserve to not be like under the thumb of patriarchy that you've chosen. Because what patriarchy has done in a world where you feel like you don't have any power is giving you power. But that power also adds to white supremacist patriarchy, capitalism, all of that. Like, that power over black women is literally the thing also contributing to your disempowerment, your disenfranchisement. And
Mm-hmm.
it's confusing, and that's where I genuinely have empathy, but I'm also just like, you guys need to come to the table on this
I was
discussion.
I'm not speaking from necessarily an empathetic point of view. I'm speaking from more like an analytical point of view of how did we arrive here, right? Because I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of the times in terms of like gender-based violence and South African men versus South African women, we women are telling South African men we're hurting them. And men are like, what do we do? What do we do? But we're not actually getting into the analytics of the psychological damage that we're working with, right? And we understand, or we're trying to understand our psychological trauma and our inherited psychological trauma as women. But somehow I feel like men, South African men and women, are not having a conversation on a empathetic level. I dare say that. I really dare say that. Um, I don't know. Maybe my version of what I think could happen is just a myth. Um, but I think
What is it?
sometimes it's no. I like this whole thing of like empathy, right? Because I think like there's something also very strong in meeting someone with empathy. Um, but that could also be a very white way of looking at it.
No, I don't want to give empathy to white people. It's just like giving reading or
No,
exploring nature or whatever to white people. Like, listen, man, I don't know, guys. I
they don't have
yeah,
empathy, but they talk about it a lot, and they
yeah,
talk
because
about
they
offering
want
it,
us
but
to
they
have
don't have
empathy
it.
for them always.
Yeah,
Always. And I think that's the thing about empathy. It's something that is almost a privilege,
yeah.
which absolutely should not be the
Right,
case. Empathy
right.
should be at like the should be the cornerstone of our interactions.
Mm,
Um, but also that's where it's that thousand things can be real at once. Like, you can have South African women want to be empathetic to South African men, but then you can have that empathy absolutely dashed away when South
mm,
African men refuse to kind of do their own unpacking, take their shit out on black
mm,
South African women, and then we die because of it. Like,
mm,
I understand someone's empathy absolutely evaporating in that moment, because
mm,
why is it that I have to do more work to ensure that I am okay as a human being and treating everyone right, but you just kind of get to be violent and act out because you're acting like we're not living in the same country. We're not living under the same, like, conditions. We're all under the same roof, but you're acting like this thing is particularly hard on you. And it's not to say it isn't hard on you. I'm not taking away the
mm.
pain that black men in this country have to deal with. I'm just wondering why you don't get to be self-critical and we have to be self-critical all the time. It's just that thing of girls mature faster. No, girls don't mature faster.
I
We
think
just
how you're
had
saying it
the
now. Sorry to interject you, but like how
no,
you're
go.
saying it now for me
Yeah,
is something that is in a way that can be had in a conversation. I feel like I've
yeah,
sat in conversation where black men are like, black women, meh, 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 meh. I've sat in conversation where black women are like, black men, blah, blah, blah. But you have now said, you don't get to do this. You don't get to do that. I understand that you're coming from this, but I also need you to know this, right? So I feel like those kind of conversations in the spaces that I have been in are not being had. It's just
no,
like people are so tired. It's beyond, it's a communication problem. I think there's a communication
yeah,
problem. I don't think I'm in no formal way am I saying gender-based violence is a communication issue. I'm saying part of some of the resolutions not moving forward is a communication issue. And
yeah,
also
because
we have to acknowledge that we do have a communication problem as South Africans. We come from a past where communication is survival. There's nothing more outside of communication than how do we survive. That's the I would dare say like the foundation of our communication skills is only based on survival. Outside of that, there is no. I don't think we have a proper communication skills because of our violence, of our violent past. And the only time we're able to communicate and care is when we're surviving.
That makes sense considering communication being just a product of the time that it was built up in. And you're right, because we don't have language for the trauma that we've sustained. Maybe now, as like younger generations, we have more access to it in terms of mental health and knowing how to speak about generational, trauma, generational curses. But inviting the rest of like the black community into that conversation is difficult because this the way that even we speak about it, this new language that we've acquired to speak about mental health isn't accessible to the
Right,
people that need it
right.
in our community. And that's why you're right when we speak about communication being a product of survival. Like we've been surviving for so long, and that's why like the new generations who are actually have the opportunity to speak about mental health and to unpack their mental health and to understand the importance of mental health in terms of the trauma that has come and the trauma that we're experiencing now. To older generations, like I seem, pampered and like some perceived like little kid because they literally had to fight. And it's this disconnect because we are essentially what they were fighting for. They were fighting for the opportunity for someone to not have their entire life absolutely like defined by violence. That they fought, people died so we didn't have to die. People died so that we could unpack and heal and move on and build something better. But unfortunately, we kind of just we went from one hell to a lesser hell. And yes, there's more freedom and whatnot, but if we're
But
not
is there
speaking
though?
to an extent, like it's not apartheid. Like it's not
No, it's
apartheid,
not.
but
But
it's
like I've
not
heard
what
the
was fought for.
but that's a very interesting thing because I've heard some elders say, sometimes they think the apartheid government was better. And I'm like, what? How could you say that? But also equally, I didn't live through it. And so I was born in it, but I didn't live through it. So for them, I think some of the conversations I've had with elders, and this are different people who have not even met each other before, and some
Yeah.
say that people had jobs, people had stability. There was like more like, okay, you have a job to go to, even though the job didn't look in the way that it's supposed to, but there was some form of order. And I think that's also their trauma speaking. And
I
at the
think
same
that's
time,
yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's a need of stability because our governments are not offering stability of any form. And
See,
somehow they found
yeah.
stability within in human governments.
I
It's
I
it's
don't
it's a
even think I don't think it's finding stability from the National Party. I think it just speaks to how bad the ANC is. Um Genuinely. Because I like one thing our elders know is like to live with like a demonic ruling
yeah,
government.
yeah.
When you come with a government that always says we're the ones that saved you, we're the ones that freed you, but we're essentially treating you the same way the government we freed you from treated you, that's an entirely new demon, you
Mm.
know? So I feel like when they say, oh, the National Party was better, maybe it's because it's service delivery. But even then, I can't speak to
Bacon,
that because,
bacon. I've
but
heard
even
bacon.
then,
They had homes or housing. There was look, the basic things. There's certain basic necessities that people need. And in order for the apartheid government to function fully, they had to offer you those basic necessities because what they were trying to do was bigger. than your basic necessities. Because if they didn't give you those basic necessities, then you were fighting them on basic necessities. So therefore, here's your basics, and now you can be our slaves because we offer
But,
you those basics.
but also to that with the basics thing is because we had local governments. So we had the Transkei, we had this like the Bantustans,
Gazankulu.
the different homelands were in charge of themselves. And in a way that fostered like it spoke to the community. They obviously did it to divide and conquer. And we can speak about tribalism because it's still going to this day, but there is that sense of like the community. So it's community leaders are making sure everyone has water, everyone has this, everyone has that. I think that's the thing. But I think, yeah, I think I'm saying that because I don't believe that the NP even cared.
Look,
Like,
I'm not saying that
no, and I'm not saying that you're saying that they cared.
it cared. I'm just like giving you the perspectives of different people that I was different adults that are not adults. I'm an adult. You're an adult.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't feel like it though. I don't feel like an adult at all. I feel like a kid in adult's clothing, figuring what the hell is
oh,
going on.
geez. So different elders that you have a conversation with, and like, listen, they say this during the frustration, right? When they're frustrated about electricity, frustrated about the kind of crime that's being committed, frustrated about not having food in the house, not being able to find work, like all the things. Because also, I think they're also victims of like a certain lifestyle. And then also, progression sometimes doesn't come in the way you think it does. So we've arrived into a different form of progression, but a lot of things has been taken from it. So it's like one step back and two steps, like one step forward and two step backs, or two step forwards and one step back type of situation. Because there are things that we're able to sit on the bus, white people, live in white neighborhoods, be whoever we want to be, but we're still getting those same shit of like not being able to get property, right?
Yeah, because we're
Not
part of
being
special planning.
exactly, not being able to rent as a black person in certain neighborhoods in your own fucking country. Cape Town being a European playground and the government allowing this, investors buying up property and like just like taking up businesses and whatnot. So South Africans are just basically, we've become the bottom of the human pool in our own country.
Yeah.
And those who get to rise are in bed with the West and China, and then do the same to us what the apartheid government did to them. So it's that basic thing of like the victim becoming the perpetrator.
And that really speaks for me about the ANC in its entirety, like a liberation, movement, not a party. They were never a party. They were a liberation movement that became a ruling party, that became like, you know, not I'm not gonna call it authoritarian, but it might as well be at this stage. That basically they became the demons that they saved us from. And what do you do with that?
And
What do you
the
do with
black
that?
version of it. And so you, exactly, what do you do about that? Because then it's the demon that looks like you, right? It's easier to fight the demon that doesn't look like you because that's how the
Is
world.
it because black people, hey, is it easy to fight the demon that doesn't look like us? Because we be fighting each other like it's our jobs.
This is a true story.
Like, because I'm
I
just
was to
like,
fight that, but like we are fighting each other like it's our job. This is true. This
like
is,
we are there every day ensuring that we take each other down.
and we're arriving. We're arriving to take each other down. Like
Yo, like clockwork.
this. This is for a long conversation with me because like it also like for me plays into my relationship with black women because we talk about black men, but we also got to talk about black
Another,
women, right?
but
So that's
that's
another
another
conversation on its
trauma.
own. So I feel like there's just so much in terms of like how we're like also this is what we're coming from.
There's so
And
much to
then
be
we're in
clarified.
the world,
Yeah.
and then we have to survive the world, and
And
then
show
we're
up
faced
every
with
day.
every day, and then there's racism, there's sexism, there's patriarchy, there's homophobia, there's, the list goes on and on. There's, you know, discrimination against disability, there's ageism, like all the isms we can ever think of.
Which are all created to essentially make a hierarchy. And it's that hierarchy that we just really need to let go of because that's how we're being used against each other. They
But
take
here
from
we
all
are
you, right?
again creating those same hierarchies. We have again white men mobilizing the world.
Hierarchies need to fall, guys. Because why? It's, you know, what's that saying of like, they came for black people, but I did nothing. They came for brown people, but I did nothing. Then they came for me, and suddenly I realized shit was going down. Like, you
But that's the whole
know,
thing with Ukraine, no?
so that's literally it. That's literally it. And it just kind of ties us back to the exhaustion of this because what is it going to take for you to understand that what happens to black people and brown people can easily eventually happen to you? Because if it can happen to anyone,
But
it
does
can
it happen
happen
to
to
them?
anyone. So
Does it?
like don't think because the racial hierarchy exists means that because you're white, you're safe. No, you're not safe from imperialism. You're not safe from capitalism. You're not safe from all these things that are meant to bolster you. And to think that that temporary bolstering, that ability to shit on someone who has less power, less privilege than you, is something that if that's the price you're willing to pay to not live in an actually equal society, then you need to look at yourself as a person because this is how we got here. Vladimir doesn't care about white people. Vladimir cares about his own imperialist agenda. He wants to like rule Europe. Hell, he wants to rule the world. But so do the Saudis, and so do the Chinese, and so does the West, and America, and Europe. Everybody wants to rule the world. When do we get past that? When do we as humans evolve past that need to conquer? You know? Because it's ruining us. It's ruining
Do, do,
everyone.
do you think it's something that is like prescribed to us, or like it's something that's been indoctrinated that we need to rule the world? Or do you think it's instinctive that we need to take over? Because then we have to have that conversation of like, what is it stemming from? You know, like, is it stemming
I
from like a primal need to be king of the jungle?
I think King of the Jungle and survival has been enmeshed into one. So it's basically the foundation of capitalism is scarcity, in that there is not enough, and thus we have to divide these resources in a certain way that makes sure that everyone gets But we know that that's not the truth. No one's getting equal access to resources.
Mm.
Everyone's getting exploited. So I genuinely believe in that sense we're screwed. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be smart about it, but
No, we are because at the end
we're
of the
we're
day,
we're because is it in our DNA? Because to survive does not mean that Russia has to be in charge of Europe. To survive
or
does not
or
mean
Western,
that we
or
need
it doesn't have to
slavery.
be the world power. Like,
Thank you. Like survival does not mean that we need to have world power. Survival does not mean that we need to have billionaires. What is it about not being a billionaire that threatens your survival? What is it about not being a world power that threatens your survival? So, is it like I feel like it's past survival because I can speak to our innate because there's an innate violence in all of us. I feel like as humanity we have to be also be very honest about who we are, like our impulses as human beings and whatnot. But I also feel like in that we have to have the conversation of like what is just a product of a system that wants us to be violent in this and this, and what is actually us, what is ingrained in us, what is in our DNA. And even then, why can't we overcome that if it is in
yeah,
our DNA?
exactly. Because if we're able to pinpoint whether it's DNA or whether it's something that, or also it could be morphed DNA. Like it could now be part of our DNA because it's
Yeah.
happened so long that it forms part of our DNA. And then the question is it part of our original DNA? And if it's not, how can we get back to a place where it's not? But I don't think it's part of our original DNA because I feel like you still have societies where you understand that part of how the communal work exists is not about conquering. Like, I know Ubuntu is very problematic, but part of Ubuntu is I am because of you are, right?
But you said it in that Ubuntu in its original form is not
Yes.
the Ubuntu we know now.
No. The one we know now is
And
highly problematic.
it's basically Rainbow Nation lights,
It's
you
Rainbow
know?
Nation Smile and Wave, boys.
You know, smile and wave, just like just keep swimming, Dory, whatever. I, you know, for me, I'm gonna blame capitalism because I always do, because it essentially desecrated community. Because if you have like you create the nuclear family, the mom, the dad, the 2.4 kids, then you have a base to sell to. Because if us as a whoops, sorry, so if us as a community know that we only need one can open in that entire community, but capitalism wants a community of 1,000 different households so it can sell 1,000 different can openers. Do you
Mm.
understand where it's not people based? The
No, it's
system
not.
that we live under.
It's never
No,
been.
it's always been about a profit margin, and I'm just like,
Exactly.
are we really gonna like watch our planet be desecrated over a profit margin so someone at the end of the day can say they had the biggest number in their bank account before they expired? It's so
And
stupid.
a part of me also feels like Putin has that thing where he knows time is up. So before
Oh
his
yeah,
time
they
is
all know
up,
time's up. Yeah.
he wants to make his mark
Yeah.
and disappear. Then this also speaks to like the constant need of feeling like we need to leave a mark, and to what extent are we willing to go to leave a mark, and is that something part of our DNA again, or is it something that we've created that we
Yeah,
need
I
to
think
make a
it
mark?
is that morphing of DNA. It is, and it's not to say that I feel like community wise, we do need to go back to the community sense of living, but DNA doesn't mean we have to like go back to our original DNA because I do believe that we're meant to evolve and transform as a human race. And that's why I feel like we can absolutely evolve past this.
Hmm.
And which is why, especially in our time, I feel like people are very, for lack of a better word, lazy in terms of what evolution is supposed to look like. Because if I'm speaking to you in Norway, I'm in South Africa, and you know we have this technology to do this, we think we're advanced, but like
Mm.
humanity and just
The
the common
aliens have
humanity
better
that can,
technology.
you know, like aliens are like Earth is ghetto. like 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 as humanity, if we're not more compassionate, if we're not more people based, if like all of our you know our development and all the investment in us as going forward as a race is poured into tech and technology and all that, then are we really evolving, or are like we pouring everything into technology so that it out you know out evolves us? And that's why everyone is so scared of AI, because all of our development is being like poured into creating something else, and that thing is just gonna like outlive, outsmart, and outdo us because we're so interested in like seeing the technological advancement instead of the actual human advancement of like not being assholes.
But that for me speaks to a lot of the times. I won't say it's not in other civilization, like in other civilizations or fuck civilizations, but I won't say it's not in other cultures or other communities. But I think there's something about the ability for people to always want more, but at the same time, I think white supremacy has more empathy for everything else than humans.
I disagree.
Then
White
what do you
supremacy
think?
has white supremacy has more empathy for what?
AI, animals,
No,
material,
I fully
property.
disagree. White
Tell me.
supremacy doesn't respect our resources at all. Like white supremacy, I actually wrote a story about this that I wanted to like turn into a film or whatever.
Hmm.
But I wrote about an AI that was created to automate or like the government systems of a country. So
Hmm.
the police, fire department, all that. But at the heart of the story was the fact that ingrained and embedded into the code of the AI was the kind of racism that exists now with our policing system and whatnot. So if you have an AI that understands that black people are less prioritized than white people, then if you have a fire in a black neighborhood and a fire in a white neighborhood, if you have minimum resources, where's a firefighter going to go? They're going to go to the white neighborhood. That's what I see white supremacy and AI turning into. I White supremacy has no loyalty, not even to white people. They don't have
No,
loyalty to white people.
no, they do not. They don't even
Yeah,
have loyalty to their own brothers and sisters,
to themselves, my guy.
to their
Because if you're
family.
not playing the party line, you also can get
But
moved
this is
out the
what I'm
way.
saying, that they have no loyalty to humanity, but to everything else, of course, that will gain them something. This is how I see it. It's like I see white supremacy as something that anything that will gain them, which is mostly outside of the human race,
Yeah.
will be beneficial, like will be the only thing that they pledge allegiance to. And then when that thing disappears, they find a new thing. It's actually
Is
no,
that
you're right. They
loyalty
have
then?
zero loyalty. Actually, no, I
Yeah,
went
because
with it.
that's the
They
only
have
thing they're loyal
zero
to.
loyalty.
Like
And
that
I
white
see
supremacy
it
has.
here in Scandinavia. Like white people ain't loyal to their family members. Guys, they have no sense of family. I mean, and I'm not talking, please don't come for me. It's I'm generalizing. There is maybe a 20% of white people out there who have a loyalty to their family. But I do feel like a majority of white people have zero loyalty to family, to other people. Like white
To
people are more loyal to
community.
their cats and dogs than to a person.
Hello.
Like even at the Ukraine border, I heard animals were getting priority.
Yeah, animals got through before black and brown people.
So on that
Exhausted.
note,
Exhausted.
on that.
And then now we're supposed to wake up every day, pay rent, find a job. I write a cover letter.
Listen, I haven't written a cover letter in so long. I'm sure I'm
Listen,
like
if I want,
in 10
if I
plus
never have
years.
to, if I never have to write another cover letter, it'll be too damn soon. Too damn soon. That thing is evil.
Hello? Oh, I'm freezing. Can you hear me?
I can hear.
Mm. Oh,
All
but
right.
let's end this.
Yeah,
That
let's
last
wrap up.
part of I'm exhausted, I think that one is going into, I think we've done two episodes actually.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a part one and part two.
Yeah.
I saw that.
It's
Yeah.
which is amazing. It's great, which means we have 2 weeks of content. Um, so do you want to exit this? Do you want to extra intro?
Yeah. Yeah. Outro.
Jesus. I'm so
Yeah.
like I'm hungry and tired at the same time.
Yeah. That's why we need to bounce.
That's why we're like,
Okay.
uh,
Yeah. So just to wrap up this very exhausting but necessary discussion, I kind of want everyone to really remember who you are and or like outside of white supremacy or just who you are outside of all the expectations.
mm,
Because if you get to cultivate that space for yourself, where you get to you get to decide who you are and you get to decide the things that make you happy and the things that don't make you happy, and you get to put up the boundaries of that, then even in this very chaotic world, you get to give yourself a space to do the things that you need to do to just make it another day.
Mm.
And also be creative. Like for me, when I get exhausted, I sleep.
Which I wanted to
but,
ask.
but when I'm not sleeping, I think just being creative and getting to express myself, getting to do this, getting to talk to you, like
Mm,
just not being like letting it out
mm,
instead of hunkering down with it. That is a
mm,
big thing for me. And whether it's dancing or singing in the shower, like you mentioned earlier, um, just those things to remind me that I'm alive. And because I'm
mm,
alive, I have a say of whether I want to be a part of this. And personally, I don't want to be a part of this. So,
mm.
yeah.
And I think there's an awakening in all of it, I think. Like there are good days and there are bad days. And sometimes you have to wake up because you ain't done yet.
Listen, 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 like, but a word, like, sometimes you're not done.
Sometimes you're not done yet and you just
Sometimes you're
gotta
not
keep
done.
going. So
You just,
you have to figure out new ways to keep going. That is just
yeah.
the unfortunate part of existing in this world. It's like you find new ways and through the
And
trauma, through the anger, through the joy. Like Jesus, Tuesday I was out with my girlfriends, black women. It was amazing. And just to have that space sometimes,
yeah.
and holding on to the good moments and hoping
Mm,
that you can, like, I sometimes feel like I grab a bag, an invisible bag, and I put in all the bad, like all the good moments when I'm having them, just to like hold on to the small memories of the good moments. And in the bad moments, I try to remember the good moments.
yeah. And
It's not
even
always
then,
easy.
no, it's not. And I wanted to say to that, even then, if I don't know if there's someone out there who even in all the good moments, like if they're in such a dark space that
Mm,
light can't escape. Um, I can't tell you what you need to hear to stay,
mm,
but I want you guys to know that you're staying is something that you can do, and
mm,
even though it's painful, it won't always be painful. Even though that feels impossible, and even though you can't feel it, um, you're loved, and people appreciate you. And think, like the fight to stick around and see what happens could be a worthy one if you deem it so. So you're not a lost cause, you know. Um, you may not hear it, but we're rooting for you. We're here for you. You know, talking shit, like
mm.
just shooting the shit.
Even in our
Um,
exhaustion.
Even in our exhaustion, guys, we're here for you. We love you. We want you to know that you are so worthy of all the good things. You're worthy of the life that seems far. You're worthy of a soft and nurtured existence, even though this world don't want to give it to you. And to that, I say, let's just kick the door open and demand it by fire, by force.
By fire, by force. On that
By
note,
fire, by force.
that's how we're going to end this. I have nothing else to add. I would just be ruining it. And thank you guys for being with us in a very, very exhausted time. Like, I'm
Ooh,
exhausted. You're exhausted.
dude, we're
Zama's
all exhausted.
exhausted. And it's okay to be in exhaustion. And let's just be
Yes.
exhausted together. Like, and
Listen.
just be in it and welcome it. And I'd like to thank you guys for supporting us. And keep on sticking tuned to hearing when we're bringing out new things. We're here to
Yeah.
stay.
We're gonna
And
be like so consistent thanks to Ginger.
Ginger being me, by the way. This
Sorry,
child,
thanks to Dudu. Yeah.
this
I'm the
child.
inconsistent one. I'm sorry, guys.
It's like I'm managing. You know what?
I'm
Let's
the
not
fun
tell
one.
them. Let's not.
I'm not even the fun one.
Oh,
I'm just the tired one. I'm not even the fun one. You're actually the fun one. I'm not like you're the fun one. I'm just the tired one. I'm just like
I'm the
uh,
fun organizer. Is that
you're
it?
the
Is that
fun organized one, and I'm just here for the
Join us again next time on our next episodes of Rainbows and
vibes. And shh, ish.
take care and see you again next time. Bye.
Bye.